Good morning. Welcome to episode 8 of the MLF1 podcast. I'm Limota Boy in Nairobi, Kenya at the Baraza Media Lab and SemaBOX. A special guest, Richard Wanjohi. Welcome back.
Thank you, Limo. It's always a pleasure to be here. Always nice to discuss this space.
It's been a while since we've been here,
Yes.
but
A lot of water under the bridge and things moving, people being in places, and new developments as well.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you again just to find out what you're doing in the world of sports business.
Okay.
We're a month since the 2023 Safari Rally in Kenya.
Yes.
And that's something which we always talk about, and it's been a big deal since it came back on the calendar. Mm-hmm. Did you attend this year?
This year I was not able to attend. Unfortunately, I'd wanted to go for the spectator stage in Kasarani. Unfortunately, that week I was so busy with my day job and I couldn't even steal an hour. So I think also the restrictions they put around the format, because the flag off was at Uhuru Park, then they moved to Kasarani. That usually, because if you don't arrive at Kasarani an hour or two before, the traffic to that side is usually crazy. But I think it was a nice event from the feedback I got from a lot of people who attended. Yep.
We have a new government since the last Safari, actually our last podcast. Mm-hmm. And you have a new CS now and a new president, deputy mm-hmm. president. Mm-hmm. It was flagged off by the deputy president, but yes. Even from the guests I know who went, mm-hmm. and like Uhuru Park is still closed, yes. And they really didn't have many spectators there this year. Mm-hmm. Last year was at KICC, a wonderful start, mm-hmm. Wonderful backdrop, but so a lot of new stuff happening with the Safari now.
Mm-hmm. I thought they would do it differently because it was the 70th anniversary of the Safari. That didn't sort of come out very big from the run-up to the events or even during the flagging off. For such a momentous occasion, you want to take and steal the mileage and visibility as much as possible. But I think the chairing or planning team didn't take advantage of that. Secondly, with the new government, I think they're trying to also find their space. As you can see, both executives are not sporty people. And I think this is just because then it's Kenya hosting this event. We had the president do a recce with one of the drivers, which was the highlight of the pre-event and the flagging off. But beyond that, then there was not much visibility of the two principals until the flagging off and maybe the final day. The new team, Carl Tundo, I think he's a seasoned driver. He's an enthusiast through and through. His father was also a rally driver. It's a safe pair of hands. Phineas Kimathi was the CEO for the steering committee or the planning committee. I think he also gave them a bit of institutional memory and just things that they've done in the last two rallies prior to this one. I think overall the government did try and do its part, but given the state of the economy, then as you can see, the funds would not be able to show up, whether it was or the flagging of the spectator stage. I understand in Kasarani, the setup was slightly different, so the fans could not get too close to the cars than the way it was in 2021 and last year. So that change of format sort of put people off, and even going down to Naivasha, the numbers were not as big as we'd expect. Yep.
I was actually surprised by even with the new government, how intense the extension by the president was. I mean, to actually go and enter a rally car and do a short sprint mm-hmm. as a co-driver, mm-hmm. and then even showing up for the closing ceremony, mm-hmm. because I think it was something seen more with President Uhuru, but I guess they've really embraced this. And then in the word of the hustler thing, they had a mm-hmm. hustler village, what they call hustler villages, and now seem to be a part of all the events, the yes. Safari Rally in Naivasha. I even see at rugby and at marathons. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about, are they really bringing on board the young businesses to showcase?
I think that's an agenda for the current CS. He set up the Talanta Hela team as he came into office. A bit of a fiasco with the appointments initially, but they're trying to find their footing in all these different sporting activities. It's a good idea on paper. it's a good thing that, you want to do activations or post and pre-events as the main event is going on. The only agenda is that how well planned is this, and what's the transparency and accountability around it? Because we know government projects, you're told that this is happening, but when you get foot on the ground, it's totally different. So you have to give disclosure who is performing, who is going to be on the raft of the activity. So we have musicians, we have artists, we have businesses. All these things need to be out in the open. That way we'll say, okay, when they went to Naivasha, there was this exposure, there was this impact they had on the ground. Rugby, I think, as we're doing with the under-21s, there's a bit of visibility there. But then at the end of the day, what's the end game? And is it the CS's agenda, or is it a ministry agenda? And how long then do you want to do that? It's a good idea, as I say. It's a way of engaging the youth and that target audience. But as I keep saying with government projects, accountability, transparency, and just that from them.
Now, go to on the actual rally part. We had 54 cars this year in the Safari Rally, which also combines with the Kenya National Rally Championship. Toyota swept again, 1, 2, 3, 4. This time, Sebastian Ogier won ahead of his teammate, who is, I think, the runaway series leader this year, Kale Rovanpera. Ford and Hyundai, is this something which, is it a concern for the WRC that you just have 3 manufacturers, and Toyota seem to be making Kenya their home ground?
I think it's a concern, and it's a good concern maybe because if you look at rallying at that level, it's a very high cost event or sort of sport. It's also become so restrictive that very few teams want to engage in that sort of incentive or idea. Over time, then, we want to see more manufacturers, I think, because Toyota is Japanese, Ford is English, Hyundai again back to Korean. We want to see a more wholesome picture where we used to have the Lancias, the Peugeots, all these other global manufacturers that come into the sport. I think for WRC and FIA, that's a bit of a concern for now. And I think also getting into the esports space, you'd want to see that spread as well, because we have a lot of, like even Toyota itself has the hybrid, all these. But back to the Safari, I think this is Toyota land. That's without a doubt. They've got the right car. They've got the right drivers in their stable. It's just finding the right mix on the day, because each day it's a different challenge. If you look at what was happening, I think on the second day there was a bit of weather challenges, but everyone just went out there and did a good job. And I think Toyota had a run for their money, and yeah, they got it all right.
You've mentioned the cost. So there's WRC 1, also WRC 2 and 3. And
Yes.
in 2, I think Carl Tunda was placed 3rd in that category. He was, I think, 11th overall. And then in WRC 3, we had Makrai Kimathi,
yes.
also finishing 3rd in that class. But overall, I think what drives local excitement is local drivers.
Precisely.
And what does it take to get more local drivers in the sport?
That's the dilemma that the Safari faces currently. Safari Rally, it has enough sponsors. It has 2-3 main co-sponsors. The marquee sponsor is KCB. We have Safaricom coming on board with their young drivers. And we also have the third one, Kenya Airways, with the logistics and the transport. What you need to do is invest in the local rallies, because without the local rallies, you don't have local drivers. We saw the Equator Rally, which was the precursor to the Safari, which was cancelled. So if you don't have the local circuit happening, then you won't have local drivers applying themselves locally. And that's the missing element in this particular time for rally drivers. I think the motorsport has been trying to get the government's agenda, or pushing the agenda through the government. That has not happened. They've also not had a very good house. They need to clean up house first before they get sponsors or corporates back. I think that's what has happened in a similar sport in rugby. You put your house in order, then the government and everyone else will come back. Without that, then local drivers will never show up, because if we don't have 2 or 3 key rallies that will happen within the season, we can only look forward to the Safari, and that already is taken up by everyone else from the international scene.
I'm really watching the Safari Rally is quite spectacular. I think at least for the WRC fans, the backdrop of Naivasha, as you mentioned, the mud this year, the scenery, zebras running across the road. It's really incomparable, I think, for the WRC on calendar.
Yes.
But on the local scene, I think many Kenyan fans, we've been told the safari of old is not going to come back. A safari which goes 3 legs around the country and
Yes.
takes 5 days. That is not going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting. Safari Rally Kenya themselves, they did a poll yesterday about which other venues may qualify for the safari. I don't know if you saw that poll.
Yes, I did. And I almost voted, but I said, let me see how it pans out. It's an interesting conversation. It started 2 years ago. I think during the COVID period, when they did it in Naivasha the first time, 2022 last year, the people started putting their voices out there and saying, Naivasha seems a bit chaotic, first of all, because of being on the highway from Nairobi to Naivasha and Nakuru. So it usually causes a logistical nightmare for that whole weekend. Secondly, I think the venue or the circuits are a bit enclosed. So you don't have a lot of people going into some of those areas. And they're like, okay, I need a bit of more space to apply this. Thirdly, Naivasha is a small town. I think the traffic and the jam. I remember in 2021, the final day, guys started traveling as early as 3 a.m. because the traffic for the first 2 days on Friday and Saturday was so chaotic that you had to start almost 6 hours to go to your final destination on the third day. That's something I think is still a concern even in 2023. So maybe they're just testing the waters and seeing the audience and what people would say about it. Nanyuki seems to be slightly has an advantage over Kilifi. Nanyuki has pedigree. We have the infrastructure with the ranches and conservancies around there. We also have the Batuk and British establishments down there. The only challenge, again, it's a similar setup. The town is a bit small, so the logistics within the area might be a bit challenging. But access to that place, then it's not as bad as Naivasha, Nakuru, and Nairobi. Yeah.
Just to the friends who I know went this year. I mean, they several of them actually now stayed on the other side, so Elementaita, Nakuru side, so they could
access it from
have easy access.
Yes.
And even those who were staying in Naivasha, I mean, literally you'd have to wake up at 3 in the morning to be at your stage at very early in the morning, so you avoid the traffic of the guys coming from Nairobi. But the poll, okay, it was not really scientific, but about 7,000 voters, and it was a very close poll. I think Nyanyuki, as you said, encompassing Meru and Isiolo,
Yes.
edged out Kilifi. So
Yes.
it was about 41 to 38. So Kilifi would be Malindi and Takaungu and area. Now Kilifi hosts the East African Classic Safari, and
Yes.
it was very well done in February 2022. Do you think that gives them an opportunity? They also do golf very well. I mean, the Magical Kenya Ladies Open is also, I mean, highly regarded, and again, because of the scenery.
Yes.
So between the two of them, which one would you favor? Assuming it's not Naivasha.
Assuming it's not Naivasha, I'd still go back to Nanyuki. The scenery is similar to Naivasha because you have the backdrop of the mountain, Mount Kenya and the Aberdare Ranges. The terrain is almost similar. That would work in their favor as WRC or FIA. Kilifi is a bit of a challenge because of the roads down there. Also, the weather is totally unpredictable because it's a coastal town. You don't know what would happen on any particular day. You might get the rains. For classic rally that the safari is down there, that's totally different because it's the traditional rally that we know. But with the current format that the rally has, I'd still think Nanyuki still has the upper hand.
I think as we wrap up the Safari Rally, your wishes for 2024?
2024, again, let me ask the local rally drivers to push the agenda forward and get more rallies on board. We have the Equator, we have the Guru Nanak, we have Athi River, we have 3 or 4 marquee events that they can have before the safari. That way we'll have a bit more traction with rallying in Kenya. I think we still have a lot of local fans who want to see or need that appetite. You need to whip the appetite before you get the main event, that is the safari. Because if we keep the safari as it is, the day that it will be knocked off the WRC and FIA, that's it. Rally driving in Kenya will almost die a natural death.
Okay. Yeah. So this weekend, today is Thursday, and we're heading into a busy sporting weekend. Mm-hmm. There is Formula E, which has its season end. It's got 2 races in London. They do this actually back to back. So I think round 15 and 16. And it's the 7th year of the series. And in the 9th year. And they've had 7 winners this year from 6 different teams. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to attend the race in Cape Town, South Africa in February. Mm-hmm. And just as you mentioned, you have to put a good show to attract your event. The 2024 calendar has come out. Cape Town is not there, which I think is unfortunate because they really put on a good show. It was very well organized. Even as we went, I think many of us were concerned because that was a time when electricity rationing was at its highest in South Africa. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do the message is put on a good show or you'll fall off the calendar.
Precisely. And if you look at South Africa, the infrastructure there, a lot of their things are much more developed than ours. I think they even have rally drivers in the Formula E. So that they already have that going for them. But if they cannot be included in the 2024 calendar, it shows you how competitive some of these sports have become. And it's because then FIA is always looking out for, okay, our interests, have they been covered? Are we able to recover our costs? Are we able to get the audiences out there, both the live audiences and the TV audiences? Because now sports has to focus on both elements. You have your live audiences, the fans who come on the ground, but you also have your TV and media. Because a lot of this, and if you notice even for FIA, WRC, almost the larger part of the spectator stage that was covered, or the way it was structured, it was because of the TV rights. So they didn't want to give everything to the fans who were there. That's why you sort of make it a bit restrictive. So again, to Formula E, it's the same. Competitive, you have to put on your A game, AA+. You have to put in a lot of investment, both as a government and as private sector. You have to make things right. And I think maybe what didn't go right for them is the energy sector, as you say, because if then that is an element that most of these companies are going to focus on. If you have to beam this out into the world, you have to provide this to audiences, both internal and global. And what happens in 2024, the situation might not be the same.
It was really nice. And, it's an all-electric series, and all the sponsors are people who they all putting forward green agendas. Mm-hmm. The cars, they're very quiet, which is a bit unusual. Yeah. Because they just pass by you and you don't realize the car is there.
Yes.
And another thing which was interesting was that they qualify and race on the same day. Mm-hmm. And in about 3-4 hour span. Mm-hmm. And one concern is if you have a serious accident, your car may not be ready for the race.
Yes.
And that happened, unfortunately. There was one South African driver who was not able to take part because I think there was a crash of one team, and so the manufacturer withdrew 4 cars. Mm-hmm. And it was unfortunate for many of the South African fans who wanted to see the local guy.
Yes. Okay. Does that then, maybe a question back to you, does that give them an edge also for the Formula One? Because I know 2024 calendar is out maybe for 2025. Chalami and any of the circuits down there.
I think local promoters, budgets, and I think the headline issue for South Africa was government commitment, mm-hmm. and then the funding which would come to the sport. So without those, you will not attract the mm-hmm. FIA to come. But this is actually an FIA series, mm-hmm. but just even FIA was very heavily involved there. Yeah. I think several F1 drivers who get farmed out, they go to a Formula E and yes. prove themselves. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about Formula One in a moment, but several of the young F1 stars, the rookies, are all both former Formula E, and then going to Formula 3 and 2. Yeah, so there's a lot of synergy between the single-seater series.
Precisely.
Then this weekend we also have the Belgium Grand Prix. I think part of the inertia we've had this season is because has the Formula One season started? But we're halfway in the season. This is going to be round 13. And it's been a Red Bull and Max Verstappen season so far. Yeah.
And it still is. I don't see that changing anytime soon. Red Bull have this by a mile. The two drivers, Max and Sergio, are doing their thing. The car is way, way above everyone else. I think Mercedes tried their best and they're catching up, but they still can't match what Red Bull is doing on the ground. McLaren has also done a good job. I think they started off the season badly, but they've caught up and I think they are challenging for podium places. The Belgium Grand Prix, the Spa, I think it's a nice circuit. It's a bit open, no tight corners. I think it's only the 10th and maybe 20th corner that it's a bit tight. Most of these spaces are, DRS enabled, and it's an open race, as we'd put it. But Red Bull clearly has it's miles and way ahead of everyone else.
If you're a Netflix producer, what are 3 or 4 stories you would write about besides Red Bull?
Okay. First of all, I'd want to focus on McLaren's revival. I think that's a story to tell for this season. We have seen what has happened after the first and bad starts that they've had, but coming into the mid-season, if they're able to recover and get a couple of podium places, then we might see a change in the constructors or the contractors standings at the end of the year. You'd also want to talk about the growth of Formula One in the United States. I think that has been a growth market for them, and even the series itself, Drive to Survive, that is what has helped the sport grow exponentially in the last 3 years. The changing face of Formula One, I think there was an announcement in the last 24 hours. All 10 Formula One teams will have one chosen driver in the all-female Formula One Academy from next year.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. We also have the team rivalries, as always, Red Bull, Mercedes, and now putting McLaren in the mix. The final one would be the future of F1. If we need an African race or, expand the horizons, what are the next frontiers for growth for the sport? Yep.
Already you've had one driver change, which was a bit of a surprise because I guess the Alpha Tauri team, the Red Bull sister team, they've already pulled the gun and I think replaced Nick De Vries, a former, it was a well-regarded rookie, but he has not performed in 10, 11 races. So they brought back Dan Ricciardo, and expectation is Ricciardo is only marking time to get himself ready to go back to Red Bull. And I think last year Red Bull, needed a second driver, but this year Max is showing that he can deliver for Red Bull by himself. He's outscored every team on his own, as he's won 9 of the 11 races. And do you foresee other changes for drivers? Last year Alonso triggered a whole domino effect of changes.
Yes.
Do you think as they take their break after Belgium, we'll see a few more announcements?
We might see a few announcements because then again, teams now will focus on the constructors' standings, because for now we know Red Bull has gone with the title, both the drivers and constructors. But teams want to position now for 2024. So in the break, I think there'll be a lot of negotiations, drivers being called here and there. I think even Hamilton himself, we are not too sure he'll still be at Mercedes in 2024. We might see Norris as well saying, okay, I want to do something different. Red Bull might want to say, okay, we need a successor for Max to continue the dominance. Definitely there'll be a bit of conversation going around the drivers. And also, again, constructors wanting to say, okay, I want to put my car in the 3rd or 4th position. Ferrari, for all intents and purposes, things don't seem to be working this season. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it's because of the change of their principal. We might have a principal again, 1 or 2 changes up there. But it's an interesting space to be at, and I'm sure that will happen during the break.
I think Ferrari are now 4th, but I think from the commentary you see during the race, clearly there's a lot of tension in the team. You can probably expect that Sainz is not guaranteed for next year. The same way Perez is not guaranteed for next year. So I think those are two seats which are already teams are looking to 2024 to make decisions about.
Yes.
We'll have 3 races in the USA. We've just had Miami so far. How do you think? And Texas is always a good show.
Yes.
What do you think about Las Vegas? And if Max has already cleaned up the titles, do you think there'll be less activity with Vegas?
I mean, trust the US to put on a good show any day, whether it was, whether the title race is decided, whether Red Bull have this all wrapped up. Any of those cities, Miami, Las Vegas, they will put on a show, and trust you me, it will be one of the best races beyond the race itself. I think all the stars suddenly, have an interest in the races. There's a lot of activity going around. We saw what happened over the weekend when Messi came out to play. Almost all the stars came in to see that, and the same will happen even for F1. Drive to Survive has given this, this sport a good mileage. So we'll have audiences from across the US showing up, and it will be a good show.
I mean, look at Messi in Miami. It's like every game now, it's almost the way you'd
record crowds.
See people wanted to go watch the Knicks at Madison Square Garden or the Los Angeles Lakers play. It's like every celebrity wants to be there, take a picture, shake Messi's hand. And
all the European teams are there doing their friendlies. And
Yes.
they're having record crowds, 80, 100K guys. So as I'm saying, for Las Vegas, it will be a huge, huge event. And that's where now Drive to Survive has been able to push their agenda, both from a marketing perspective and also from audiences across the world.
This weekend, so we have 2 races of Formula E, and F1 has one of the sprint events in Belgium. And we actually have a clash of events this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Usually Formula E, because they race on Saturday, is able to not really have a clash. But this year they will have a race on Sunday, as Formula 1 has its race in Belgium on Sunday. Will you try and give Formula E a chance yourself?
I'd be lying if I said I'd be watching Formula E. I'd want, just go for Formula 1. But there's, as you said, there's an interesting space for Formula E. The aspects are quite different, as you say, when you have the qualifying and the race on the same day. The cars are quiet, which always seems odd because when you're used to the F1 noise and all that, especially for the sound bites, that's why we keep going back to F1, and that's how Drive to Survive has been able to push the agenda across the world.
Okay. Because of divided loyalties, I'll try and watch as much as I can of both. They have quite a bit of stuff on YouTube, but then also they have an app where they put a bit of races, and then SuperSport, I guess shows both series. Yeah, so they show Formula. I don't know if there'll be a clash on their motorsports channel. I'll have to check on that. So this weekend there are 2 races at the Hankook London ePrix and the MSC Cruises Belgium Grand Prix on F1. Back to F1, your predictions for Belgium?
1-2 Red Bull. McLaren might get 3rd position. I don't know whether it will be Lando again. Mercedes might challenge for 4th and 5th. But I don't see them doing a podium finish, and especially if they don't get the pole.
Wow. No Ferrari in your conversation?
No Ferrari on this one.
Man.
Yeah, it's an open. I mean, it's that racetrack is so open. I don't think Ferrari will hack it.
Oh, well, thanks. We've gone so fast. So last time we spoke with you, you were doing a motorsport publication. You were doing sports business at Strathmore. What are you doing now in the sports space in Kenya?
So there's a lot of conversation. I think since we last met, there's been such a vibe around sports, and I think also with the new government coming in. So as an institution, we are looking into that space. So we want to develop what we're calling the Sports Business and Innovation Hub. It will be part of the research and innovation hubs that we have within the institution. Basically, we are trying to set up sports as a business and tell guys that, it's no longer what we used to have 5-10 years ago. We have to make sure that sports is able to feed whoever all the stakeholders and all the players within that space. So we're trying to get back a lot of the sports organizations and sports bodies to structure the organizations formally and, have the proper accountability, transparency, and just a better way of running their affairs. Then from there, now we can focus on the clubs and each of these sports differently. We have your football, which is the universal game. We have your basketball, we have handball, volleyball. In Kenya, as we see, we are such a multi-sport country that we need to take advantage of that. And that will give us leverage both from an internal perspective, focusing on, improving our lot faster as a country than pushing our agenda out there. We have seen what happened to Gor Mahia. They were supposed to be our representatives in the Champions League for Africa, but because of our technicality, we could not put the club forward and we couldn't get a replacement. Those are the things that we want to, forget about. It's about time that we push our agenda beyond just the mediocre stuff that we've been doing in the last 5-10 years.
So you're saying the opportunities you see, but also warning signs which are flashing.
Precisely, and I think we were having this conversation before we started this steeplechase, the 3,000 meters steeplechase in athletics. It was a traditional sport for Kenya. We lost it in the Olympics. We lost it in the World Champions. We have the World Champions coming up in August. We might not be in the podium finishes if we don't put our act together. And again, even in the middle and long distance races, Ethiopia, Tunisia, the Chinese have come and said, this is no longer your sport as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if we get spoiled by when we have a shining star. Right now it's Faith Kipyegon, Eliud Kipchoge, but below the limelight, there are things we should be looking at.
Precisely. And remember, we have also had a lot of doping issues within a country. And, the spotlight is on us from an international perspective because they're saying, okay, you have a stable of talent, but you also have a huge number of athletes who are testing positive. So from the qualifiers for World Athletics Championships this year, they took a lot of doping or they did a lot of doping from that level during the qualifiers and also for athletes who are going to be at the camp. So we have to make this a deliberate effort. We have to clean our sport. We have to nurture the next talent. We have to start putting structures in place. Most of these things, even in Formula One and motorsport or rallying, you start this by investing in the youth and doing the structures as you go along. If you don't do that, then the future of our sport is pretty doomed.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Time flies so fast.
Yeah. Your wealth of knowledge on all things motorsports and all things sports business in Kenya and Africa. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Limo, for hosting me, and I look forward to the next session.
Okay. Has been our guest, Richard Wanjohi. You can find him at @Wanjohi on Twitter. We are at the SemaBOX. SemaBOX has just launched Wazo. It's a podcast distribution platform. You can find it on wazo.live. And it's for creators, shows. If you're doing audio, you're doing video. And the goal is to basically monetize your local content that we're producing. So check it out. I'm Limo Taboy at Bankelele, still on Twitter. We're really looking at Twitter. I don't know if in a few weeks we'll be saying when we're on X or we're on Threads or whatever. Yeah, but check it out and catch the MLF1 podcast on all the platforms. We're on Spotify, and hopefully we'll soon be on Wazo Live. But thank you very much. Have a good, nice race weekend, and see what happens next week. Thank you.